Hi, folks. This is Empowering Democracy. And again, we're going to be discussing the likely changes following a Russian victory in Ukraine. This is part 8 of our discussion. We keep on getting more and more deeply into it.
Things keep changing too.
Yeah, things keep on changing because basically what's happening is that the Russians and the Chinese keep on making deals, and the international situation keeps on changing. And it looks like when the Russian victory in Ukraine comes, there's just going to be a tremendous loss of status for the United States. And it looks like it's just going to increase uh, the momentum of all the other changes that are taking place. Okay. Anyway, tonight I'm joined by Dee Pierce, the host of uh, okay, the host of Around the World with Dee and Friends.
Thank you for having me.
And we're also here with Matthew Waldie. Matt is a longtime friend of the show and also someone who is deeply into international politics at this point and following the developments very, very closely. So I expect we're
Thanks,
going to
Jeff.
have a deep discussion tonight.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, okay, thank you for coming, Matt.
Oh yeah. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so where are we after one more week of further developments?
See,
Uh, okay, what kinds of changes are accelerating over, well, since we started this series?
Can I just say
I
something?
yes, please.
I just want to say the news that came out I saw today was South Africa. South
Which one?
Africa is South Africa, the leader, who's with the
Oh,
UCC court.
getting
Yes,
rid of the
he's out.
EEC. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, ICC, yeah, he said, I'm out because he's,
Yep.
knows how to
Yep.
go against Russia. He's, part of the BRICS.
Here's a farce
So he's not
I'm
putting
sorry.
himself in any
organization.
complicated situations.
Could you please clarify? He said he's out.
Oh, the ICC, International Criminal Court,
Oh, he's
over
out
them.
of the ICC because he objected to the indictment of Putin by the ICC, right?
Correct.
Yep.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Yep. Oh
You're
well,
welcome.
and
I just kind of
Putin
wanted
wants
to
to
raise
go.
this.
Yeah, Putin wants to go there, and they want him to come. So there was a they had to do something about that. So they did.
So they did. They said they're just out of the ICC.
Yeah. They didn't even mince words like saying we're dispensation, this or that, or anything else. They just backed out of the whole thing. That's a startling world development. I think that the most startling thing happened just a few hours ago. It was the release of the Salon article, where they actually discussed all the most of the facts of the Ukraine war leading up to the war. The first mainstream media outlet that I've seen that actually at least 90% got it right, and I've never seen that released before. They even talked about it being destabilizing for the United States once the media lies are completely undeveloped and everybody sees, the actual truth of what's going on in Ukraine.
The
So
article states the opinion that it may be politically destabilizing for the United States if the truth
yep,
gets out.
yep.
And what did the article mean by politically destabilizing?
They say that because just that the media infrastructure in the United States will nobody will believe them anymore. That because it wasn't just Fox, it was all the outlets did whatever the military industrial complex asked for. And it's just
Whatever the power structure in
yes,
Washington, basically Biden and Blinken and Sullivan and Victoria Nuland.
Oh, and the what senators, the McConnell, and I mean they listed a lot of both sides of the aisle. So it was I don't know how far it'll go, but Salon is not is is a mainstream rag. So I am shocked. I mean, they hedged your bets and talk about how badly things were going for Ukraine, and then said, "Oh, how badly they're going for Russia too," which, of course, that's part of what's going to be coming out as well. But that they're not doing as badly as they'd like to say, that they even lied about that. But they are. It is an odd, not odd. It's telling. I think it goes right along with the Tucker Carlson being ousted. Mostly, I think, for two reasons: because of his stance against Ukraine, or at least I wouldn't say he was against Ukraine. He was allowing that voice to come onto his show. I'd say he's against Ukraine, but he isn't against war, right? And also his platforming and legitimizing JFK Jr. And I think that was the final straw but that's on the political side. But on the Ukraine side, those are the pushing of the media's curtain is starting to open, and the fact that they are so orchestrated by the U.S. government, so closely tied with the propaganda the government is spreading, it really looks like puppet master and puppeteer, and that's what they're worried about, destabilizing the United States media and the political structure.
I see
Well,
it
if
happening.
that development is going to happen, it would just be amazing.
It is, but I'd surprised any even slightly Western rag is saying that, or even intimating that that's a possibility. Is and then we've seen ratcheting up in the media, trying to get us prepared for the realities in Ukraine, right?
We have seen that, yes.
Yeah, I mean the leaks themselves. That's the reason why the Salon article was based on, because the part of the leaks that nobody wanted to talk about were the estimated dead 7-1. Which, yes, they have one document said that Ukraine has only lost 30,000 and Russia's lost 100, and then the very next page it says that it was 7-1. For every one Russian, 7 Ukrainians dead, and so the math didn't work, and then it turned out that the PDF was altered. So yet we also know that leak was what came from. Didn't come from a 21-year-old officer, or not, enlisted man. It was released. It was planned. It was a plant. And Bellingcat, the main Ukraine NAFO, was the one that delivered the message. That was where the leaks came out. So it's pretty obvious to me that they now are trying to get into damage control as fast as possible.
And I just want to talk about what he said with the South Africa, or how to get it up. They said the South African ruling party decides to withdraw from the International Criminal Court based on the manner in which the ICC administers justice in a rule-based order. That is U.S. rules or no rules at all.
Mm-hmm.
So everything's going to be tumbling down, big.
Well, and
so Ghost Star, no Tucker.
Yeah. And Lavrov's in New York and talking and completely you wouldn't know it by the media that he was in this country, but he is surrounded by a crowd and UN waiting on his every word, and he's being very, very eloquent. He's already a fairly eloquent speech maker, but he's just been pouring it out, no holds bar. You'd think that some of the things he says are kind of amazed. I'm just that he's saying this in front of this body of UN, and he's even stating that it's to save the UN that he's saying these things, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, and he did, and that's exactly what he did. They don't want the so-called rules-based UN and those kind of things to fall. They just want it to be fair, for that everybody has the same rights, and he's trying to prove that. So many ways he's trying to prove that.
Yeah, they
Um,
want it to be fair, and they want it to be based on international law, not
mhm,
this crazy rule-based order that nobody knows the rules of.
mhm,
Exactly, crony capitalism.
mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, and that's what this is doing. I mean, this is Ukraine war. If it lasts as long as it could, which could be another year, right? If they slowly grind this out, Russia's still going to win. That actually could be the worst case scenario for the United States. The closer this gets to election time, allowing for this amount of subterfuge and lies and public buildup of being heaped on especially the ruling class that over the United States right now. I don't I think that they're going to have to start finding for an off ramp quick, because otherwise they're not going to have time to repair the damage, and to the point where a sitting president may actually, because I mean, he's going to run again. He said he's going to run again today. Um, that was the other big thing that happened to me. It wasn't
I know.
to hear, but the really the big part of that is Bernie within hours of all of a sudden, no, Biden is my man, and full endorsement. That's it. And I thought there would be some kind of like hand holding for Marianne for a little while, but I think that he's given up. I think he's protecting himself. I don't think there's any choice in the matter. I think he's in one way or another protecting his life and his life of his family. I don't think there's any way of looking at it any other way.
Yeah, and he's also protecting his position
Yep,
as
and
the
his
chair
power.
of the help committee. And I suppose he's still thinking that he can do something useful as the chair of that help committee, though he may well be the only one in the world who thinks that.
I think he has visions of party leadership in a progressive party that takes over the Democrat Party, because I don't see what he's doing. I mean, I do see what he's doing. I don't want to believe what he's doing. That's a better way of putting it. I don't like it. It makes me feel like there's so many ways he could have handled this and still done the same thing. You see what I'm saying? Because there was no reason for him to come out right away and no, the Biden's are this that
He
just
should
smacks of
certainly have done the opposite. He should have shut his trap,
yep.
and it would still have been very difficult for them to dislodge him from the chairpersonship.
Oh, impossible.
And
And he got
can't do anything useful as the
no concession either.
with
I mean,
Biden. With Biden as the president.
yeah,
I mean, even if by some miracle he could get a bill through the House and the Senate, it would die on Biden's desk.
of course it would.
So,
And there's no concession. Sorry, go ahead, D.
Okay. Yeah, I heard that they weren't going to have any debate.
Nope, no debates.
yeah, the DNC has already said it's not going to have any debates.
Nope.
Okay, obviously, some of the candidates are going to have debates that may be sponsored by interest groups or third parties, or there are so many people very, very angry over the fact that there will be no debates, that someone is going to make an effort to have the debates and invite Joe Biden. And if he doesn't come, that's going to further subtract from his popularity.
Or further reveal how little the primary vote actually means
right, and all those things count against him in terms of his attempt at reelection. So there is going to be a weakening of his position, however he plays it. But the question for me is whether further disasters in the war or further worsening of the position of the United States in the war uh, won't force him to change his mind about whether he's going to run again, okay, or not, because his opinion polls are just going to keep on tanking.
Yeah, I would hope that RFK is. I mean, RFK is part of the system. That I'm not going to give him any kind of, outside the system credibility here. He's a direct oligarch, but he is the going to be a much easier person to get past and actually have decent running in for the Democrats in a general vote, right? So, because I don't believe that Biden can deal with a general election campaigning or vote.
From my point of view, we're going to see that RFK is going to begin to take money from all of the rich people he's known over the years.
Oh yeah,
and all of the corporations those rich people run, and he's not going to do anything about the funding. So, from the standpoint of the Dump the Corruption campaign, uh, he will be one of the corrupted people that
of
will
course.
be advising voters to vote against.
Oh, but no doubt. But he is the negotiation, the oligarchs' negotiation. They did the same thing with the FDR in 1932 when they knew in 29 that things were going to fall or already falling, and things were going to get worse. They didn't want to be blamed, so they went out there their best to find, because 1929 was, the wealth hubris fault. That's the reason why these things happen.
Yeah,
And
but they had no idea that Roosevelt would do what he ended up doing.
I think they knew that he was still looked at as a kinder, less supply side candidate at the time.
Yes, I'm sure, but at the same time, uh, okay, as soon as they saw what he was doing, they planned a coup against him.
Oh yeah. I
So
don't think
they were surprised by what he was doing. He was
it's never the whole oligarchy.
yeah.
It's it's never the whole oligarchy. This is not the whole oligarchy either. It's just there's a side of that that's seeing the writing on the wall, right? And they're scared. I honestly think the RFK is a direct symbol of a faction of the oligarchs that is now scared that they're going to lose power.
I agree with you entirely about that.
Yeah.
There is a segment of the oligarchy that is alarmed over the climate emergency.
Yep.
And a segment of the oligarchy that is alarmed over the dominance of certain parts of the oligarchy, like the NRA, for example. Like the healthcare interests, okay, for example. They know that all this that is going on with those interests is too extreme.
Yep.
And that they have to be in the position of throwing some crumbs to the populace. And
Yeah.
it's not been happening, and they're scared because it's not been happening.
Yep. Yeah. And that to me is what RFK is the let the meat cake, keep power, but don't keep it too far away from us either. And in the end, that's what FDR did, right? FDR did everything he could to maintain and restore the economy and the people's trust, and then at the last minute removed the actual agent of progressive power, which is Wallace, push him out of office before he had a chance to become president and put
Well,
in
he
troops.
pushed him out of office, but
Yeah.
uh, he was under tremendous pressure from other parts of the Democratic Party to do so.
Oh, sure. But
It
if
isn't
he was in
clear.
power,
It isn't clear that without that pressure, that he would have pushed him out.
I don't believe that without the corporate pressure, which was pretty direct,
What do you
to replace him with their corporate candidate, who was Truman, in office, knowing that he may not even make it out of this last term, because there's already a lot of rumors about his illness that was continuing on. He was not as healthy going into his final turn. I think that was one chance that we had to break the back of the oligarchy would have been a Wallace presidency, because I don't think we would have. Part of the reason why we're in the corporatocracy now, part of the reason why we're fighting in Ukraine right now, is because we dropped 2 bombs in Japan to
Yes,
scare
those bombs came in Japan, but it's also because of the Cold War.
well, that's where the Cold War came from. If we could have had a friendly relationship, there was nothing inherently wrong with having a communist country and a capitalist country in the same world. There was those are the things that could have been figured out if they didn't make one an enemy over the other, and then exacerbate that. And they did that from not the World War II didn't end because of 2 bombs. World War II was already ending. They threw those bombs to tell the USSR that they were king shit and to back off.
Yes, I know they did.
And that started this. That was Cold War. And that's why I lead that up, because that's exactly what's happening in Ukraine right now. It's how far we ratchet it up. Are we going to ratchet up to the point where we actually have to drop some other kind of bombs in order for them to be scared enough? Because I don't know if they say that Russia says they're going to retaliate, but I'm not so sure they will. I'm not so sure that China would let them retaliate if we ended up drawing tactical nuclear bombs in Ukraine.
Yeah, I'm not so sure either, but I'm pretty sure. The reason why I'm pretty sure, is the radiation is certainly going to spread to Russia proper, and that I think that greatly increases the chances that they would respond. Now, they might not respond with a direct attack on the mainland, of the United States, but they may well respond with small nukes of their own in Western Europe, and on NATO, and then that escalates. Brings the 2 superpowers into further conflict.
Now,
And war. It's very hugely dangerous. And
so if we look at it in a realpolitik, frame of mind, put those goggles on. In a neocon world, what you just talked about is their end state. That's what they want.
Yes, I know.
So, and because they think that allows the United States to maintain a superpower status without having to join the rest of the world and share resources and be anything but the hegemon. They think that is the safest way the world can survive. And if it takes dropping nuclear weapons, they'll do so.
But they still won't be the hegemon, because
they don't understand that. That's monetarism.
The combination of the Russians, and Chinese, and it's not going to affect the emergence of the multipolar world. The multipolar world is still going to emerge. It might be that Europe, is not going to be one of the poles because of what they're doing.
Yeah.
But there are going to be other poles. And I think this then leads to the direction of the conversation into other directions. For example, again, we have to return to the question of looking at the situation and developments in Africa over the last 3 or 4 months. What is going to happen to Africa?
Well, we saw that they asked Biden asked today to put boots on the ground in both Sudan and Ethiopia. He's trying to get war rights from Congress to sign off, and it's
will he,
directly. He's go ahead. Sorry.
will he get those war rights, do you think?
He hasn't failed so far. I don't know why he wouldn't. And on top of that, he could sell this as not just against Russia, but also against China. So he'll get Republican support. So that's really the only difference, is that the Republicans want to fight China. They don't want to fight Russia.
Yes, I know that. But I still doubt that he's going to be successful, okay, in getting that. I think people are, first of all, they're extremely negative at the money that we're spending. And second of all, I think they're extremely negative about widening the war to Africa.
I wish I
don't think people have an appetite for that. I think they're going to be outraged by that.
I'm not sure I don't think that they're trying to advertise this. I mean, I think that even the little bit that has gotten out is more that they wanted than they wanted to get out. I think they personally will let this sit and then create a time when nobody's watching, which is probably right before a session ends or in between sessions, which they can do as well. And silently pass it. I don't think that they think of this, the actual people in Congress think that this is a bad idea. I think what you're saying is they're worried that their constituents will think this is a bad idea.
I'm saying that constituents will think it's a very, very bad idea. The election in 2024, is coming up, and they're going to be in a terrible political situation if they do that.
Yeah, I don't know how much they think their constituents can push them out of office anymore. I'm not so sure that they have such a high opinion of their system that's so firm in how well it's paid off, that they think that, well, they might lose a couple, but it's not worth, the MIC will take care of whoever gets knocked off. Because it's a business to them, right?
Raise those questions, I think, which are very good questions. What's going to happen, in Latin America?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, we have the pink tide still rising, in Latin America. And obviously, the intelligence agencies are going to try to counter that with coups, at this point. And not only counter that, but also counter the spread of Chinese influence, in Latin America.
Yeah, I saw Venezuela submitted to join BRICS.
Yep.
I saw that today.
And Colombia kicked out Guaido.
That's interesting.
And that he illegally went across the border from Venezuela into Colombia. And he had his ticket. They kicked him out because they did. That's the difference, I think, between this pink tide and any of the ones previous. There is a group of at least 5 South American leaders that are actually almost friends. They're connected. So and unlike before, there's no competing agent. And I think that they're actually helping each other. I know that they're helping the situations in Peru right now. That's making it really hard for the neolibs to stay in power and continue on. I think they're going to give up pretty soon, which is amazing because they may end up getting the entire Pacific coast to turn socialist, and that's a large port area for goods and service to come through a socialist country like that for production to increase.
The 5 friends.
Well, Lula to some extent, Bolivia, Venezuela. I think Colombia is now showing that they're going to, and I actually put in Mexico, AMLO in that group.
Okay, how about
Nicaragua and Honduras, 6. Okay,
how about Chile and Argentina?
Chile is still very free market centric. It's better, but I don't know enough about Argentina. I know that they are trying to repair their system. They seem very volatile, up and down, but because of their economic system is not stable.
Right, but they're also moving closer to BRICS at this point.
Oh yes, I don't think anybody in South America will be able to survive without the two monetary systems, both BRICS and the internal South American monetary system that seems to be just about ready to, while it is transacting, it's just about ready to go to all countries.
Uh, and again, that particular monetary system is the idea that they have an international currency that they use for trade.
For trade only. Yes, they trade in their own currency and they transfer their loans through the bank. Sorry.
Currencies.
Yeah.
And the idea for this two-level currency system is based on what Keynes put forward during
Yes,
the
it is.
40s, but which was never accepted by the United States and Britain at that time.
No.
Okay, so their ideas for this two-level currency system are fairly sophisticated.
Yes, they are. Here, I'll be right back. Hold on one sec. You can keep talking. I'll talk.
Okay. Okay, Dee, you have any comments at this point?
Because she's coming. Just relax.
I like the way things are moving forward. And, it's the countries that we look at that have experienced the harm. Most of the harm are coming together. Because you're going to look at Canada and you look at the US and Australia, they're all countries that were colonialist countries.
Right, and they've all been doing very well
Mm-hmm.
Inside of the trade and monetary system that's been set up by ourselves. Okay, also, Japan has been doing pretty well with that particular system too. But the countries of Central and South America, not so much. And the countries of Africa, not so much.
Looking at the changes in the Middle East as well.
Yes, of course, it's been a disaster for the Middle East.
Exactly.
And
So
we keep on compounding the disaster, okay, in the Middle East.
yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
going back,
we're early on there.
South
Sorry,
America,
go ahead.
but going back to South America, how quickly do you think things are going to develop in South America? And would a Russian victory, okay, in Ukraine accelerate the trends, okay, in South America?
I think that the best thing that could happen is that it's more about China's stability than it is about Russian stability to me in South America. That's the easiest way I can put it. So the Ukraine war is important, but I don't think it matters as much to South American growth or South American, unification or trade or any of those things. I think Africa has a little more to do with Ukraine because Russia is so much more heavily involved in their direct development in Africa. But I do not think that it isn't necessarily an inhibitor or anything in South America. South America it's like South America to me now is like China was 10 years ago, where it's inevitable they're going to be a big deal. More so than Africa, because Africa still requires so much infrastructure and so much knowledge and so much that thing where they know that they can do it, right? That's
Right.
They have to have that,
Okay.
and they don't have that right now.
I think that your assessment of the geopolitical situation in South America and the contrast with Africa, okay, is right. But there is the factor of the loss of status for the U.S. Okay, if there's a terrible defeat, okay, in Ukraine, which we all see coming up. Okay, so that loss of status has a cultural and psychological impact because it becomes clear to nations around the world that we're not so fearsome as a nation, and not so capable of actually retaliating. And I think this affects the perceptions of the relative power of both, well, I would say the relative power of the Russo-Chinese combination.
Good.
In other
I
words, it
don't disagree.
increases everybody's perceptions, okay, of the relative power of that particular combination, and perhaps the importance of affiliating with them rather than remaining subservient to the United States.
Yep. I don't disagree that I more or less I'm stating that Ukraine. So if Russia lost, let's say something happened and Russia was all of a sudden had their defenses fell and they had to leave Ukraine, all that kind of stuff. I don't believe that the United States and Europe's worries are over. But I don't think South America would be as affected by a total turnover in that arena. And as you said, it actually may that in that respect, I would think it would actually help South America because there wouldn't be any pushback or pull down from the United States capable while they're trying to domestically shore up their political system and power structures. Because the one fear I have of all this is the power vacuum occurring in the United States from the lack of trust in a complete devoid of trust in our media and our political processes. I don't necessarily think that that's the best thing.
Political processes and our elites.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our establishment.
There has to be somebody strong enough. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
and that's how I see, in some respects, RFK being is that's they're already established leadership oligarch that can maintain power during transition. The issue is to make sure that they understand that they are transitioning to a people's country away from an oligarchy. That's the part that I don't think they buy, right? That's the part they got away with last time, and that's the part I want us to make people aware this time if that occurs, to stay aware that the system's not over. They need to be pushed a little bit farther.
Okay, so the big question, or one of the big questions anyway, okay, let's say there's a sudden run to RFK and the opposition from the DNC suddenly disappears because everybody is very afraid of the loss of the confidence of the people in the whole elite structure, and they need to bring in something to reinforce that confidence. And so they turn to RFK, the opposition melts, and they nominate him because they're pretty sure he has a good chance to win against
Trump. That's the one person I think he has a chance at winning the nomination is if it looks like Trump is actually going to become the nominee in Republicans. I think they don't care if it's DeSantis over Biden or Biden over DeSantis. They don't care about that. But I don't think that they are. I think that there are definitely.
So let's speculate and say there's a flight, okay, to RFK.
Yeah.
Okay, and that they want the understanding, okay, from RFK that the transition that's going to occur is not going to be a transition that overturns the whole establishment, okay, but just a transition that gives people the impression for a little while that we have turned into a people's republic.
Yeah.
Okay, to put it in that way. What would be the thoughts, okay, of RFK?
Mm-hmm.
In other words, is he likely to go along with this? Or is he for the transition to a people's republic, do you think? Or is there a way to tell?
That's it. We won't know. we won't know. And so just like, we're supposed to take them at their word. You have to take them at their word. And we'll find things out as they go along, right? That's the thing about the internet, and the thing that they really don't like and don't understand, that even at all the pressure and all the hiding of everything that comes out, things still come out, right? Quickly, much more quickly than they used to.
Yes.
And so there should be a point where we're going to have enough information to make a call on that. I think it'll be more like how firm is he in his belief that this is the way things have to be, or how much can he bend, and can we get him to bend on a couple of important policies that will do what we want to do anyway? Because federal job guarantee leads towards most of the is a very much an end round.
We want him
policy.
to certainly bend to the federal job guarantee.
Yeah.
And we want him to be an MMT president, and we want him to do Medicare for all, and
all that stuff goes with it, right?
And we want him to take care of the climate emergency.
Yep.
How does he do these things and still keep control and prevent this from becoming a people's democracy?
That war. I mean, it to me, that's the marker of the end of FDR's New Deal, was when we went to war. Essentially, we embargoed Japan's oil and caused them to attack us, right? Which gave us the point of view that was allowed us to change public opinion from what was very lukewarm about any kind of war, going to war overseas.
But right now,
to fervent
hatred.
Have
different situation.
Yep.
In terms of the actual relative power, of the great powers.
Yep.
In other words, we had at the start of the 1940s the potential, to develop a mighty industrial power. Producing all kinds.
Yeah, we can't do that now.
Goods.
Yep.
Comparatively speaking, compared to the Chinese, we cannot do that anymore.
No, it cannot be war against China, and it cannot. And I'm just, it's flabbergasting that they're continuing this war with Russia. But I think they really bought their bullshit.
It's flabbergasting that they're trying to start a war with China over Taiwan.
And
all the military assessments are that
disaster.
Yeah, it would be a total disaster that we cannot fight a war in that area. The ships would be blown out of the water.
Well, it would be unbelievably horrible for our economy.
It would be horrible for our economy, but it would also be horrible for our military structure.
I mean, right now, if India decided to be upset with us, we would lose most of our engineering and data scientists that come to this country from those locations. We would lose more than just the trade. We would lose our most of our brains. So we're absolutely teetering on the edge here of it's brinkmanship to me. I think that there's enough knowledge up there, as stupid as they sound, to know that they're just playing brinkmanship. But how far will they go? I mean, I don't think they'll go to the point where they attack Taiwan. If they do try and sell Taiwan to, stop China from unification, or block their trade, or tell them to stop trading, which is, asinine and self-destructive. I think China only has to do is take away 40% of the trade relations that we have with us right now. They don't even have to get rid of all of them to completely cripple us. And I don't know why, it's a foregone conclusion.
Make us say uncle.
Yeah. It would be instant. We complained about taking a month or two to get our new Toyotas, You know, imagine. I know you think, well, that's Japan. You don't realize how many of those parts come from China. There's no way for them to complete it. Most of the foreign vehicles that we own, BMW and them included. um, there's we are stuck if your knowledge is in the neoconservative mindset. If you're not stuck in a neoconservative mindset, all you see are opportunities of love and fellowship and a growing human culture that is more diverse and stronger than ever. But from a neocon, all you see are enemies everywhere. Everybody's a potential enemy because you're not from the United States.
Right, but the more they push that, the more they get isolated, okay, in this country.
Yeah.
And the question then is, will they be able to hold on to power?
Right. I always look at things as 2 steps forward, 3 steps. We're going to have to try and push as far forward as we can, and then realize that we're going to take setbacks, try and prepare for those setbacks with the tools that we have, which we do have much better tools of predicting through MMT, especially with the macroeconomic system. But we can use far stronger policy statements and mission statements instead of dictating how much the flow should be, which is one of the ways neoliberalism controls domestic production in our country, is by saying, well, you need to only allow for this amount of people to get this amount, otherwise they're going to slow down employment. We're going to have to cause this percentage to cause it. We need to say all people need to have a job that pays them a full living wage in every part of the United States with full benefits. That's it pegs the dollar to employment instead of to profit, and it changes this inadvertently. I mean, I don't want to use the S word, but it changes it into a labor-based country. That could be done in a matter of a year if we decided to go for it. That's kind of what we did in World War II.
Yeah, that is kind of what we did in World War II.
Yep.
Okay, except of course we have to inject the element of planning.
Yep.
World War II was done, okay, with planning.
Yep.
Very sophisticated planning that we have not begun to approach today. We forgot about the planning after the war.
Yep, that's true. But community-based systems that instead of it being where the federal government a state asks the federal government for more money, and they have budgets that they have to wring their hands over, and then the community goes back with this little pittance that they get out of the breadcrumbs from the budgets that the state thinks that they need to use. Instead of doing that, it's just we have a program that we think would be good for our community, and then have a panel to come back and say, yeah, that looks good, which they do already. That's something that happens all the time.
Then the federal government's going to fund it.
Yep, and it's already there. It's not a matter if, when, or who they have to pay off. It's already waiting.
Right.
And that comes from a statement that says that everybody should have a job, who wants a job, at a full-time living wage, or it is living wage, full-time doesn't matter, at a living wage so that they can afford to live in comfort and with the benefits, which is M for all.
A living wage, but a living socially inclusive wage.
Inclusive wage with benefits, which means M for all, which means retirement at a decent age, not 67 or 70 or 62. Let's go back to 55.
Let's go back to 65 first, and 62 2 years later.
62, and then maybe it was 55 in this country. So I honestly think that that's probably for those who don't want to work. I mean, who put in their time. It should be able to retire comfortably after 55. If you love your job and you still want to keep going, there's no reason. You keep going. It isn't a hard thing to do that on an individual person.
And if you're able to retire comfortably, okay, at 55, then maybe what you'll do instead is to find a job that you really like.
Exactly. And then hopefully that job will have a nice federal job guarantee that's attached to it, and you can go teach surfing at a lake because that's what you want to do. and it's a public service, and you enjoy the kids. Why not? I mean, or stay-at-home parents is my favorite one. I don't understand why this hasn't happened already. We should definitely be able to pay for at least one parent to stay at home with their kids for as long as they need. And they certainly should be able to have both parents for a certain amount of time when they first are born.
Yes, I entirely agree. Okay,
Anyway,
but what we haven't really come to zero in on yet is with respect to Ukraine. Will the Biden administration realize when the Russian victory comes that
oh yes,
they cannot stop it without a further mobilization of NATO forces to invade Ukraine?
yeah.
Okay. Will they recognize that? And will Europe sit still for it? Because Europe is not mobilized to do that, and our factories are not mobilized to produce the machines and the ammunition and the tanks and planes that are going to be necessary to do something like that.
Yep.
We are not armed, okay, to do that now. We are looking at 2 or 3 years of heavy efforts to become capable of doing that. And even then, the Russian capability will be increasing all the time.
Well, and then the will of the people to actually go through with it, even if there was funding and everything else for it, right? The system itself isn't even going to be able to support it, because the second people start to work towards it, there's too much wrong with their position. They're too far on the wrong side of history and don't realize it, or
Yeah.
don't want to realize it.
And people will begin to realize, of course, they didn't care about this because their families were not really directly involved. But when we began to go into Ukraine and to intervene there and to build up the Ukrainians to provide a challenge to the Russians,
Mm-hmm.
we didn't have any people who cared about that here. I mean, Ukraine
No,
was so far away.
exactly.
We're not
And
concerned about Ukraine. But now we see that this idiot government wants to continue the war in Ukraine and have World War III over Ukraine, which doesn't matter to U.S. people at all.
nope. No, it
Is
doesn't matter to
that
German people.
yeah, it doesn't matter for German people. Is
Yep.
that the factor that's going to mobilize the masses in all countries?
They had 1 year. They gave themselves 1 year to ramp up enough jingoism to start for us to believe that Russia was the enemy they wanted us to believe they are.
Yes, but
And when China said no, we said, "Why is China backing Russia?" And that's honestly, I'm hearing that now from people who are, who are staunchly against Russia and hated them, and they're wondering.
And they're raising the question: why is China backing Russia? Why doesn't China just want to keep on trading with us?
Yeah, we're the better partner. What's wrong?
And they don't understand that the answer to the question is multipolarista.
Yeah, exactly. And
Chinese want a multipolar world where they can trade and do business and not have to worry about a hegemon. And that's why they're siding with Russia.
Yeah, and I think some that even are on the realpolitik and are seeing the support from China into Russia, and the fact that they can intervene in our economy so drastically and so quickly that they can't afford that. We talked about this before. People vote for the jobs, and I can see economic people changing their mind and going, wait a second, this is actually going to affect my job. I don't care enough about Russia pretending it's an imperial. They're a bad guy. Putin's a bad guy, but I can't risk.
Care enough what's going on in Ukraine to jeopardize my job.
Yep.
Or to jeopardize the economy, or to cause a recession. Okay, or any of those things. It ain't worth it.
And they taught China. was going to fold.
Stop it.
They thought, yeah, and they thought China was going to fold. I think the United States and the neocons thought China was more in their hip pocket than they were, and thought that they needed our money more than they ever do. Because otherwise, I don't understand the begging and pleading started so late in the process to begin with, and then when it did start to ramp up, it was obvious that it wasn't going to work real quick. And, so I just also believe that this is an epic moment of people being in power that are wholly unqualified to be in power. And it was a magical moment for us.
I mean, these people are idiots.
They're cloistered. They live in a different world. They don't understand what's going on. They think of themselves as completely untouchable, and that they're part of the United States that's untouchable, and they're so necessary. You know this. The oligarchs think that they don't think that they're bad people. They think they're benevolent, fathers who are taking care of the United States. And I say fathers on purpose because that's what they think of themselves. They did not cross over into the understanding of the equality of the sexes. They didn't move over into racially tolerant or even sexually tolerant views. That group, by and large, especially the leadership, they would be more. We would see them more in the 80s. They are stuck in that toxic masculinity. Never say you're sorry or wrong. And yes, and nouveau riche are different when they get up into that rack, they are shocked when they walk into these stale rooms full of these old, rulers who are still, making blackface jokes, as if that's funny at all, and not, talking about fondly about the one guy I talked about. He had just recently sold his stock off for a company that he created, and he made a lot of money. He came from nothing. He was a high school student. All of a sudden, he had $10 million in his bank account, and he talked about going to meet people that he thought were, wonderful bastions of, rich people. Oh, they're great people. And he says he couldn't even stay in the room, and the man happened to be Asian American. So he was disgusted. He couldn't handle it. He never, talks crap about him ever since. Won't go near him. Just absolute. And these are people. I'm, not talking as cool. These are people in power. These are the, it wasn't Soros, but it was a Soros adjacent person, billionaires, and they are cloistered themselves off so much that they are not in connection with the rest of humanity.
Yeah, they don't know what's going on there. They don't know what's going on here.
Yep. And so that makes them totally unqualified to lead.
Okay. They are out of touch. So D.
Yeah.
You have been quiet there.
Yes, I had to put the speaker off because it was kind
sorry.
of noisy here. No, it was noisy here, so I had to mute myself for a bit.
Okay, would you like to give us a commentary on the conversation we've been having?
Well, basically, what we've been seeing is with BRICS and the as you said, multipolarista world, things are going in that direction. And I don't think there's any stopping it.
Can we stop it with our intelligence services activity, in Latin America?
No, I don't
Are
think
those
so.
services sufficiently powerful?
Well, China is extremely sufficient, extremely powerful with with in that area. And so I think, they've got protection with China. China will, help them out. China, Russia.
But China doesn't have any armed forces in that area.
Right, but I'm just saying with intelligence equipment and maybe training as well. I think
But
you know,
what
we're a
the
different age
intelligence
right now.
services are probably going to do, if the administration wants to uh, continue this war, okay, on other fronts, and not accept the emergence of the multipolar world, one maybe logical thing for it to do is to snuff out the Latin American part of the multipolar world by basically cooing all the pink tide countries. Question I'm asking is, are our intelligence services powerful enough to do that now?
I
Or
don't think so because
has
they've been
the evolution
trying.
has the evolution of people power, okay, in Latin America gone so far that the intelligence services attempts at manufacturing coups will be easily turned aside?
You know, a lot of people too are on social media as well. There's a lot of more people aware of what's going on. And I think people are fed up, especially in South America, are fed up with the US involvement in the coups and all the bullshit. It's you know, you have a small group of elites, but everybody else is fed up.
Okay, so you think that if the United States tries this, we will fail?
I think so. I think
Okay,
when you
so
use
then the
use the
next
word done
question
deal, the
is,
US is pretty much a done deal. We're falling and falling and falling.
okay, so then the next question is, okay, if we think that such an effort will fail, do the elites that can create such an effort also think that that effort will fail? Or are they so far out of touch that they still think that the intelligence services can shape the politics of Latin America once again, but in a way?
Just so out of touch. But they're gonna, you know, they're gonna be kicking and screaming. You know what I'm saying? They're just not gonna go down and have a dialogue and discussion and whatever. It's gonna make the screaming baby with the rattle in its mouth and the diapers on, you know?
They haven't been able to do anything, okay, in Venezuela to overthrow the government there, and they've been trying for more than 20 years.
Yep.
The question is, are they going to be able to overturn the Brazilian government again? In other words, they crushed the pink tide there, okay, got rid of Lula, but they got rid of Dilma, okay, and they had a term, okay, of Bolsonaro,
Hmm.
who came close to re-election. Is the CIA powerful enough to turn that around again and get rid of Lula this time? Or is he too solidly ensconced so that they will fail?
I
Oh,
think that's fair.
I agree with Dee. I think that Bolsonaro almost was going to go with the BRICS too, right? I don't think that the CIA can coup with anybody that they can trust anymore in South America. I think that it's just China's deal is so sweet that even the crooked corrupt will want to side with them.
I think that's a very interesting opinion. I think I agree with that. I think it's gone too far. And I think if Brazil can't be turned around,
Oh,
the
yeah.
rest of Latin America can't be turned around either, because they're going to go with Brazil,
Yes.
which is the dominant power.
Oh,
And I think we should never forget that the population, okay, of that country is 2/3 of the population of the United States in terms of people power. It's a country to be reckoned with by itself.
yep. It is. Yeah. just that's I totally agree. I just think that if a criminal agent who's making millions of dollars doing criminal things for a country is being told by another country that you can do all and make all that money, but you're no longer a criminal, I think that that's far too enticing for any human to take, and that's pretty much the deal that China is offering right now. That's why Africa is falling, and that's why even Sudan is not allowing the United States to dictate its friendships anymore.
Okay, so really the only way for us to counter that is
More
to do what the
carrots.
Chinese are doing,
Yep, more carrots. And we're not willing to do that
and we're not willing to do that.
because that means we have to get rid of our military. Because the carrot doesn't come with a stick that you can see.
All right, and so so we're going to lose in Latin America.
I think we lost already. I
And
think that was a big deal when Bolsonaro lost.
yeah, I think it was a big deal too. I think it was a very big deal. Okay, I think we've probably done it for today, but I still think we have more to talk about.
Oh, always. This changes every week. There's
Okay,
always something new.
okay. Are you up for part 9 next week then?
Sure.
Okay, so let's take a look at the comments and see if we have things that we need to be concerned with. But I do want to do 2 things before we get into the comments. First, I want to remind people, please buy me a coffee.
Please.
Yeah.
And secondly, okay, I want to remind people, please occasionally go to my Patreon site, okay, and do something there. I mean, a monthly deal is really, really appreciated by me, even something very small. Certainly $5 counts for a lot when it comes in on a monthly basis. Okay, then I also want to say something, and I don't know if the deal is quite in place yet, but if you'll give me a minute, I'll find out what's going on. Okay. Okay. Okay, it looks like this is going to happen tomorrow. Okay. Okay. I've been talking to Laura Fielding, okay, about a special panel discussion. There are many of you who may know about the Healing Us movie,
Mm-hmm.
okay, but which is out. Uh, okay, the premiere hasn't occurred yet. It's due in Tacoma, Washington on May 19th. But after that, there will be screenings all over. Now, some of us uh, got it advanced screenings of it. Okay, I happen to be the recipient, okay, of the video. So I got a chance to review it. Okay, and I love the documentary. It's really, really moving and really powerful. But it's not simply a documentary, but the Red Berets and the people who have made this film want to found and start a Healing Us social network. And they've been having live stream discussions this week with various people, okay, about the Healing Us movie and the Healing Us social network that they're trying to start. Okay, and tomorrow at 4 p.m. ET, I'm due to do an in-depth interview with I believe it's going to be 6 of the principals involved here. The 2 people, Kenny Ballantyne and Matty Purvis, who made the movie Healing Us, and also the Red Berets, who supported their efforts. But Joe Jarvis, who was the executive producer of the film, but Laura Fielding, who had a tremendous amount to do with it, Tsukuru Force, and 2 or 3 other people who were very important. Oh, also Scott Neuer, okay, is going to be part of this. Okay, and a couple of other people who were very important, okay, to the group. So this is going to be an in-depth panel discussion. It's going to start at 4 p.m. ET, and will probably go on to roughly 6:30. Okay, ET. I expect that there'll be a hard stop. Okay, at that point. So it's going to be in depth, and a number of them, okay, are going to be there. It's happening so suddenly because there's a plan to do a tweet storm on
Yeah.
April 30th about this. But
Mhm.
that is now being organized, and the tweet storm is going to want to make reference to the interview that's going to be occurring at 4 p.m. ET, but tomorrow. So, of course, I invite you all to that,
Oh, wow.
and I tell you about it. And I think this interview is going to be very, very special.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you. I think, yes, it is awesome, but I
Yeah.
think it's going to be good for all of us. And if the network gets off the ground, then of course uh, the thrust will be towards passing the Medicare for All bill.
Yep.
It is going to be very political. It's going
Mhm.
to be it's going to be countrywide, and it's probably going to culminate in movements on the anniversary, okay, of Medicare, which
Yeah.
is July 30th, okay, or so. It's around there anyway. And I think the social network will be building towards a major effort, okay, at that time. So this is part of the movement and pressure again to, getting Medicare for all passed. If not, okay, at the national level, certainly in some key states where the movement has been strong, such as New York, California, and Washington State. And there's quite an effort starting up, okay, in Utah right now, which is Joe Jarvis's state. And it looks like there's momentum there too, and
Good.
momentum in Washington, of course, in California also. So I wanted to tell you about that. And okay, I'd like also, of course, to invite you to come to that. But now I want to take your comments. So Robert Copeland says, I hear from some sources China has internal problems as they're having an aging population due to their one China policy that they had for a long time. Oh yeah, but going back to Mao, but
Here's the reason why you think. I can tell you why he thinks that. That's actually U.S. propaganda.
yeah, that's what I
Um,
was. That's what I
and
thought was. It bears the mark immediately when you hear it.
it's that we are a capitalist country, so we need things to be new and grow, and in order to grow, you have to have more population. That's not the case in China. That's not how they base their economic success or failures from. So an aging workforce is not necessarily a bad thing as automation starts to take over more and more jobs. It kind of goes hand in hand, and I think it seems more well planned than even though that's not how you want to plan it. And they have apologized profusely for having the one child policy in China previously. So
Right.
that being said,
You also can never forget that they have 1.5 billion
yeah,
people there.
Yeah,
Now, they have gotten something like 800 million people out of poverty, but
300 million a year.
that still leaves 700 million people to go.
Yep.
So
Yep.
they have all of that person power that has not yet been brought into the modern world.
Yep.
That's going to happen.
And sustainability isn't about growth. So that's they can shift away from the center of growth, and they already have. I mean, they've gone from 22%. A business was allowed to take 22% profit from for close to a decade. They changed that down to 11%, and now it's down to 7.25%, and it should be down to regular 4.5%. I think is what they plan on having it stick at for several decades. And that's supposed to happen by the end of this decade, sometime in 2028, 29, somewhere in that range. That's the forecast, at least, because they need to reach a certain point of infrastructure production to be completed and the trade routes to be stabilized. And if those trade routes are done, then they will drop down to less and less profit that a company is allowed to take, which means that there's no longer a profit motive. You're now trying to put all your money back into your business in order to sustain it, and that means more employment.
Okay, thank you, Matt. That's an excellent answer. Okay, Africa dumped ICC so Putin can visit. I think it was South Africa that dumped
Yeah,
ICC.
South Africa.
Not the whole of Africa, though we may well see that if they keep persisting with this Putin prosecution nonsense.
I think the African Union has already discussed it. They're not technically.
Okay, they may do it, you think?
Yeah, I think they are.
Okay. So, Steve Ghoststart says he's protecting Raytheon. I'm not sure who the he is here, but I'm sure you will make that clear, Steve. Okay, Bob Copeland says, I think Joe Biden is the second worst president in my lifetime. Okay, I think it's as yet undetermined how worst he is going to be. It may be premature to make that particular judgment, though he's been getting worse all the time. That's true. Ghostat says, according to the Voice of America, Ukrainian pilots have arrived in Arizona to begin training for flights on X-16 fighter jets. Well, that's fine, but this war may be within 2 months of being concluded. So it may be a little late. I mean, it may go on for longer, but they have no people to call on any longer.
How many can they do? How many can they train?
Yeah, but they are running out of people to conscript off the streets. They're dragging people off the streets.
And Russia literally has thousands of pilots.
Yes, but I'm not even talking about just pilots. I'm talking about ground forces. If they have no ground forces left to hold the ground, they're not going to hold the ground. The Russians are going to be at Odessa right away,
mm-hmm.
and then they're going to go to the west so that they control the border to Poland. I don't even know whether they're going to go after Kyiv.
I don't know.
It may take a while to go after Kyiv. So it's just too little and too late. Newsweek denies reports that a Russian missile strike took out a NATO command center in Ukraine. Yeah, I have no idea whether that's true or not.
Well, it's true. Yeah, they used one of those new Fab that 900 or something like that, 1500, that they put gliding wings onto and can guide as well as they can any missile shot from, it's just as accurate. And they blew up the bunker pretty good.
So what is a NATO command center even doing in Ukraine?
Exactly. And that's
Yeah.
why they can never say they hit anything.
Newsflash: Gilbert Doctorow talks. Sorry, on Press TV about Russian Kinjal missile strike on NATO bunker in Lviv, Ukraine, which allegedly killed 200 NATO officers. Oh, is that expensive? What an expensive thing to happen to NATO. Rostat says Yandex News yesterday reported crates with the remains of the recovered officers were flown home. Robert Copeland says Sudan is on the verge of a full blown civil war. If they are not in a civil war already, which is true, of course. And Ghost
And
Star goes up with 50 intelligence officials say canceling the debates is the only way to avoid Russia disinformation campaigns. Oh, oh, oh. Boy, is that a laugh. I mean, if you believe that, I got a bridge to sell you. Okay, the UK is rolling out CBDC program making cash transactions over 1,000. Okay, illegal.
yeah, that's the whole EU is doing that.
Oh wow. And Ghost Dot says, by the way, Israelis are fighting for Ukraine. Is that true? You think Israeli troops are there fighting for Ukraine?
Yes.
I would say so.
It's stupid, but
What are the Israeli troops doing about the neo Nazis in the Ukraine armed forces?
Well, there was a
oh,
large faction of Jews that helped the Germans in Nazi Germany too.
yeah, and they gave medical care to somebody too.
Sorry.
Anyway, Israelis have boots on the ground fighting for Ukraine. Okay.
Everybody does what's in their best interest.
I agree, Matt. China much more relevant in Central and South America than Russia, but things are so fluid. Who knows if sooner than later Russia will also be important. Right now, bilateral agreements between Russia and Venezuela and Cuba, okay, are underway. Well, I'm
I
sure they
agree.
are. And
Yeah.
Robert Copeland says right now, for a lot of people, rent is going up faster than people's income, which is going to cause more people to become homeless. And more
Yep.
people are certainly going to care about that than to care about fighting a war in Ukraine.
Right. Yep. 50% of all property, last I checked, some close to 50% are being bought by corporations in this country right at the moment. So they're just going to create a renter country. That's what their goal is.
And quite a large percentage of those are being bought up by BlackRock, of course.
Yep.
They
BlackRock.
better ramp up production of those designer incubators.
Make those new rich people out of the test tube babies.
Yeah. China told Eastern European countries that if they dare to join the U.S. in not recognizing Taiwan as part of China, China will not recognize their legitimacy.
I saw that French comment. The Chinese ambassador discussed how, the end of the Soviet Union, where there was some question on statehood for some of the former Soviet Union bloc. He walked it back. Just, that may be an internal idea, but I don't think China is willing to not recognize the legitimacy of a country, and sovereignty is a huge deal for them.
Yes, it is. Okay, GPS jamming happening over Taiwan has been going on for 3 straight days now since 4/21/23. China's carat equals uh, equals dollars, I suppose, or money, I suppose. Okay, a U.S. carat has a fuse equals a bomb.
Yeah, say that our carrots have a bomb on the other side of them.
Yes, not enticing to people.
Yeah, yeah.
And Robert Cope says, I have only seen a trailer of Healing Us, and what I've seen, it could be a game changer. It may be a game changer for many people. It may be a game changer in some states, but it's not going to be a game changer for Joe Biden. And that is one of the really big reasons why we should not be reelecting Joe Biden under any circumstances. Not under any circumstances. And Bob
Uh,
Copeland says we had a legislative visit where over 700 people were fighting for the rights of the renters yesterday in Sacramento. Yeah, that's getting to be a really, really hot issue. Okay, any further comments, folks, to end? Okay, any comments you'd like to leave with us, Matt?
Oh, no, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It allows me to get this out at least once a week. I'll try and come more often, but it's good to talk.
Yes, it is very, very good to talk. I've been really enjoying these programs tremendously.
Me too.
Okay, and Dee?
Thanks.
Yes, I was going to say I really enjoy it too. For me, it's like a therapy session. We all get together and talk.
Yeah, we get so much of the opposite. You want to have a little camaraderie with people. It's hard sometimes.
Yes, but it's very important
Yep.
to have that, of course.
It is.
Okay, so everybody, please tell everybody you can about the show and how wonderful it is.
Buy Joe a coffee.
Okay, and enjoy it. Well, I said that once already.
I know, I said it though. I get to say it too.
Thank you.
Everybody, like, share, and subscribe.
Yep.
Yes, like, share, and subscribe. And I should say another word about tomorrow. Assuming that I do the 4 p.m. EST show that we're talking about. It's actually EDT, not EST. But assuming that I do that, then I won't be doing my 9 p.m. show, but I will be going to join Dee for her show at 8 p.m. tomorrow.
Sounds great. Thank you.
So, in other words, my 9 p.m. show, which is usually a Dump the Corruption show, will not be done tomorrow if I do the 4 p.m. show about Healing Us. Okay, so thank you very much for tonight. And I think I'm going to see you tomorrow for the Healing Us show.
Take care, everybody.
So stay tuned and watch out. I'll be on sometime tomorrow. And thank you again, Matt and Dee, for joining me tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you. Take care, everybody.
Okay,
Yeah, good night.